Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Geostrategic Podcast. Thank you for watching or listening to the podcast. An underwater drone, marked from China, suddenly appears in one of the world's most strategic sea routes. Was this a scientific mission or the start of a silent war beneath the ocean? A fisherman in Indonesia just uncovered something that could reshape Indo-Pacific security, and the implications are bigger than most people realize. But before we break this down, I want to hear from you. Do you think this was espionage or just research? Drop your opinion in the comments. I read every one, and your perspective matters. If you're interested in geopolitics, defense, and global power shifts, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and let's dive into what may be a silent war unfolding underwater.
Well, the stakes you just outlined, they are incredibly real. I mean, what we're looking at in these last updates isn't just a random piece of hardware drifting onto a beach.
Right.
It is a physical manifestation of this massive, mostly invisible competition. We're essentially seeing the infrastructure of a future maritime conflict just washing up into the public eye.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the contrast here is almost cinematic, right?
Right.
On one side, you have a local Indonesian fisherman just, trying to make a living.
Yeah, exactly.
And on the other, you have this multi-million-dollar piece of classified defense technology.
Yeah.
So let's look at the actual facts of the discovery. It's April 6th, 2026.
Yep.
Around 10 a.m. local time. And this fisherman is operating his boat about 10 to 16 kilometers north of the Lombok Strait.
Right, near Gili Trawangan.
Exactly. And he pulls up what is officially called an unmanned underwater vehicle, or a UUV. And this thing is not small at all.
Oh, far from it. We're looking at a cylindrical device that's about 3.7 meters long, so over 12 feet.
Wow. So roughly the length of a small car.
Exactly. And it's 70 centimeters in diameter with a rear fin for stabilization and this highly complex array of integrated sensors.
And it wasn't exactly like flying under the radar in terms of who made it.
No, not at all.
Because the body of this UUV prominently displays the CSIC logo, along with the Chinese inscription for the China State Shipbuilding Corporation.
Which is a direct, undeniable link to China's state-owned defense industry.
Right. But I want to pause here, because the latest info highlighted a detail about the drone's condition that completely threw me off.
Yeah.
It was heavily covered in marine plants and barnacles.
Yeah, and that biofouling is arguably the most crucial piece of forensic evidence we have so far. I mean, barnacles do not attach and grow to that size overnight.
No, or even over a few weeks, right?
Exactly. The condition of the hull practically proves the system had been underwater for months, possibly even longer.
Which is exactly what I'm stuck on. Because finding a UUV covered in barnacles is like walking into the woods behind your house and finding a high-tech spy camera strapped to a tree.
Right.
But it's completely covered in thick moss. The wear and tear tells you it wasn't just dropped there yesterday by accident. It's been there a while.
Actively operating in the dark, yeah.
But wait, if this is a highly advanced, super expensive piece of covert tech, wouldn't they have a retrieval mechanism? Like, why leave it there to rot and turn into a reef?
Well, that is the nature of how these specific types of autonomous vehicles operate. Many of these UUVs are designed as underwater gliders.
Okay, gliders.
Yeah, so unlike a remote-controlled toy submarine with a propeller, gliders use these tiny changes in their internal buoyancy to slowly glide up and down through the water column.
Oh, interesting.
They move forward in this sort of sawtooth pattern, and because they don't use traditional propulsion, their battery life is enormous. They're deployed to loiter for months at a time.
Just hanging out down there.
Right, surfacing only briefly to beam data to a satellite before diving again.
Ah, so it's a marathon runner, not a sprinter.
Precisely. But the ocean is, an incredibly hostile environment. Eventually, batteries fail, buoyancy engines jam, or maybe the software crashes.
So what happens then?
When that happens, fail-safes usually kick in to make the drone positively buoyant so it doesn't sink to the crush depth and get destroyed. It floats to the surface and just drifts on the currents until someone,
in this case, an unsuspecting fisherman,
exactly, stumbles upon it.
So a technological failure essentially exposed the whole operation.
Very much.
But honestly, figuring out what this drone is really only scratches the surface. Because where he found it is what makes this a geopolitical powder keg.
Absolutely, because if we connect this to the bigger picture, geography dictates naval strategy. The location of this recovery, the Lombok Strait, is one of the most vital maritime choke points on the planet.
Right.
It sits within what Indonesia designates as the Archipelagic Sea Lane II,
Yeah.
or ALKI too.
To give some context here, when most people think of Asian shipping lanes, they usually think of the Strait of Malacca, right? So why are we talking about Lombok?
No, the Strait of Malacca is famous, yes, but it is notoriously shallow. In some places, it's only about 25 meters deep.
Wow, that is shallow.
And it's also incredibly congested with commercial traffic. So if you are operating a nuclear-powered submarine, which is massive, the Strait of Malacca is a nightmare.
I can imagine.
Submarines are forced to run at very shallow depths, or even surface, which makes them easily detectable by satellites, radar, and just visual observation. But the Lombok Strait, on the other hand, is deep.
Like how deep?
We're talking hundreds of meters deep.
So for a nuclear submarine trying to move from the Pacific Ocean to the Indian Ocean without being seen, the Lombok Strait isn't just a convenient shortcut. It's practically the only viable deepwater express lane.
Exactly. And the legal framework makes it even more complex. Under the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, ALKI 30 is a designated international transit route.
Meaning what exactly?
This means foreign naval vessels, including submarines, are legally granted transit rights. Indonesia cannot simply close the strait or ban foreign navies from passing through.
Okay, so what does this all mean for the listener? Let me try to put this into perspective. It's almost like having a public superhighway running right through your own backyard. Legally, you can't put up a toll booth, and you can't stop the traffic. But finding this drone there is like suddenly catching a foreign government secretly mapping the exact dimensions, the potholes, and the blind spots of that highway.
So they can gain a tactical advantage over you later.
Exactly.
That analogy hits the nail on the head, because mapping is the exact mission profile of this type of UUV. And that brings us to the actual payload.
The sensors.
Yeah, the sensors on this drone aren't taking high-resolution photos of ships. They are gathering highly specific environmental data.
Right, because the last updates detail exactly what this thing is capable of. It's equipped to measure salinity, water temperature, ocean currents, and to map the seafloor surface in really granular detail.
Yes.
But I have to push back here. Here's where it gets really interesting. Temperature and salinity literally sound like harmless high school earth science.
Right, it sounds totally benign.
How does knowing the water temperature actually help a military?
Well, what's fascinating here is how the fundamental physics of the ocean dictate military supremacy. When we talk about submarine warfare, we are really talking about acoustic warfare.
Acoustic, so sound.
Exactly. Radar doesn't work underwater. Light doesn't travel far. The only way to find a submarine, or for a submarine to see its surroundings, is through sound. Sonar.
Okay, so pinging a target.
Yes, but sound does not travel in a straight line underwater. The speed of sound in the ocean changes based on 3 factors: water pressure, temperature, and salinity.
Okay.
When a sound wave hits a layer of water where the temperature suddenly drops, which is known as a thermocline, or where the salinity changes, a halocline, the sound wave physically bends. It's called refraction.
Wait, it bends like looking through a thick piece of glass where the image gets distorted.
Exactly like that. And if a submarine commander knows the precise depth, temperature, and salinity of those layers, they can hide underneath them. A sonar ping from an enemy surface ship will hit that cold, salty layer of water and bounce off, or bend away, entirely missing the submarine below. It creates what the Navy calls an acoustic shadow.
That is absolutely wild. So it's like knowing exactly where the blind spot is on a security camera, but the blind spot is made of cold water.
Basically, yes.
So you're saying that by mapping the temperature and salinity, this drone is essentially generating the data needed to weave, like an invisible stealth cloak for nuclear submarine.
That is the reality of seabed surveillance, yes.
Yeah.
By understanding the acoustic environment better than your adversary, you manipulate the battle space to your advantage.
Wow.
You know where to hide, you know how far your own sonar will reach, and you know exactly where enemy subs might be lurking. So while measuring salinity sounds like a benign scientific endeavor,
in the context of a strategic choke point like ALKI Fitzgen, it is an invaluable, highly classified military asset. Okay, so when you realize that this seemingly boring data is actually the master key to making a nuclear submarine disappear in sovereign Indonesian waters, the threat level skyrockets, which explains how Indonesia is handling this sudden breach.
yeah, their response was incredibly swift and highly indicative of how seriously they are taking this.
Right, because upon receiving the report from the fishermen, The Indonesian Navy and local police didn't just casually tow it in. They established strict security perimeters.
And immediately brought in specialized bomb disposal units to scan the UUV.
Which, I have to admit, calling the bomb squad for what amounts to a rogue weather drone seems a little intense.
Yeah.
Was there a genuine fear that this thing was packed with explosives?
Well, it's less about it being a literal bomb and more about anti-tamper mechanisms.
Oh, okay.
When a nation deploys classified intelligence gathering platforms, they sometimes equip them with self-destruct charges or corrosive chemical mechanisms.
Just to destroy the hard drives if the device is captured.
Or handle them properly, yeah.
Yeah.
The bomb squad was there to ensure no such mechanisms were active.
Wow. Okay, that makes perfect sense. You definitely don't want a technician opening a panel and triggering a scuttling charge.
Exactly. So once they confirmed the drone was sterile, meaning no explosives, no radioactivity, and no immediate physical threat, it was transported to the Mataram Naval Base.
And it is currently undergoing a highly detailed technical inspection by the Indonesian National Army.
Yep. But the physical inspection is really only one part of the response. Because politically, Indonesia didn't sweep this under the rug.
No, they did the exact opposite. Rear Admiral Tunggul released a very firm public statement affirming Indonesia's commitment to defending its maritime sovereignty.
Which officially elevated the event. They didn't pass it off as marine debris. They called it what it is, a potential infringement on their national security.
And while Indonesia is taking this very public, very serious stance, China has remained completely, entirely silent.
Yes, they have.
I mean, there's been no press release saying, hey, our oceanographic research buoy broke, can we have it back? Why the silence? If they just claimed it was for weather research, wouldn't that lower the temperature?
This raises an important question about the nature of gray zone tactics. If China officially claims the drone and asks for it back, they are openly admitting to conducting unauthorized seabed surveillance inside an Indonesian archipelagic sea lane.
Which is a massive diplomatic incident.
Exactly. By remaining silent, they maintain plausible deniability.
The classic, I don't know whose drone that is, defense.
Right. They lose the hardware, but they avoid the diplomatic fallout. However, their silence is deafening.
Definitely.
It strongly implies to the international community that this platform wasn't just an isolated experiment.
Right.
It is highly likely that this UUV is just one single node in a much wider, clandestine underwater surveillance network operating quietly across Southeast Asia.
Okay, but let's look at the bright side for Indonesia. They physically possess the drone now, right?
Yeah.
They've captured the enemy scout. But even with it sitting on a desk at the naval base, they aren't totally out of the woods. Because if the data inside that UUV is heavily encrypted or runs on proprietary software, it's like finding a locked safe, but having absolutely no combination.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it.
You know the secrets to the acoustic shadows are inside, but you can't actually see what they were looking at.
And that is a very real technical hurdle. Extracting and decrypting that intelligence is not easy. However, in the world of defense intelligence, capturing the hardware itself is almost as valuable as the data it holds.
How so? Like if you can't read the map it made, what good is the drone?
Because you can reverse engineer the capability. Even if the hard drives are locked, Indonesian engineers, and likely their international allies, can examine the battery composition to determine how long it can stay deployed.
Oh, I see.
They can analyze the buoyancy engine to understand its dive capabilities. They can test the sensitivity of the sensors. Knowing the exact technological limits of your adversary's equipment allows you to build better countermeasures against it.
So even if the safe is locked, studying the metal it's made of tells you how to build a better drill.
Exactly. But regardless of what they extract from the circuits of this specific drone, the long-term impact of this discovery is already set in motion. This incident is going to serve as a massive wake-up call.
For the whole region.
It will almost certainly force Indonesia to rapidly accelerate its investments in underwater domain awareness.
Which means what, practically? Buying more submarines?
Not necessarily. It means investing heavily in acoustic sensor networks, essentially underwater microphones placed along the sea floor of the Lombok Strait to listen for these gliders and the submarines they support.
Right.
It means upgrading maritime patrol aircraft and seabed surveillance systems. They have to close the technological gap to secure that backyard superhighway.
And I imagine this isn't just an Indonesian problem. If China is mapping the Lombok Strait, every other country in the Indo-Pacific has to be wondering what's happening off their own coastlines.
Oh, for sure. This changes the baseline of regional security entirely. We are likely going to see a strong push among Indo-Pacific nations to develop a joint regional strategy to deal specifically with the threat of unmanned underwater systems.
Because you really can't rely on fishermen accidentally catching multi-million-dollar spy drones to maintain your national security.
No, you definitely can't. That is not a sustainable defense policy.
Definitely not.
And, I want to leave you with a final thought on this. Something to consider about the sheer scale of the environment we are talking about.
Let's hear it.
The ocean is unimaginably vast, and it is incredibly deep. If one single fisherman, just going about his daily low-tech routine, accidentally stumbled upon this highly advanced stealthy drone simply because it suffered a mechanical failure and drifted to the surface.
Yeah.
How many others haven't broken down? How many of these UUVs are successfully operating in the crushing depths right now, silently mapping the future battle spaces of the Indo-Pacific without anyone ever knowing they are there?
Wow. That is a genuinely chilling thought to end on, and definitely something that will change the way you look at the ocean. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on this deep dive, for watching or listening. We really appreciate your time and your curiosity. If you want to keep exploring the hidden currents shaping our world, be sure to check out the other deep dives on our channel. Until next time, stay curious.